जाने कि सतना करो आज जाने कि सतना करो. This is how we hope all of you will feel by the end of today's evening. Please mark my words. In the midst of all the chaos during COVID world, Diwali presents us an opportunity to take a pause, laugh, live a little, and make special memories with family and also our extended family of IIT BHM alumni. I will share a sneak peek of Diwali at my home. Customary pujas, parents dressed in bright silk clothes, sessions of bursting crackers, including thousand walas. Now I'm all in for green Diwali. Armed with sweets, people meet their friends and relatives, and in this case, I'm meeting all my college alums. As we all know, Diwali is a festival of lights. Being here with all of you virtually adds extra sparkle to it. Very warm welcome to Double Diwali Bonanza, a fun get together to celebrate Diwali. We have two major events today: Fun Day, pearls of wisdom from our thought leaders, as well as our distinguished alumni, Professor Paddy Padmanabhan and Professor Pankaj Chandra, followed by Bandish of the Batches, a unique musical night, or Sangeet War among the batches. May the best batch win. So let's not wait anymore. As usual, we will start our event with Kulgi, a tribute of love to the founder of BHF, Pandit Madan Mohan Malavya. Kannan sir, please play Kulgi. And for all of you, Mr. Kannan Nair is our 1982 batch alumni. Over to you, sir.
Music cannot be heard.
Your audio is not
Recording or
audible.
doing it live? Oh, okay. I
This
thought
is a
you
recording.
were going to sing it live. Okay.
And then you have to put the sound. You're not putting the sound.
Are we supposed to sing individually
No, no,
while
sir.
being
So,
on mute?
Kannan sir, the
Kanan, you have to
audio
put
is
the
not
sound.
audible.
Audio you have to put. We can't hear anything. Can you just stop the share and start again, please? Kanan, you have to put the sound. Yeah.
Now it's coming.
Yeah.
No, it's not coming.
No, we can't hear the sound. We can only see the video.
When you share the screen, go to the video. You have to put the sound, enable the sound.
I don't know how to do it.
1 second, yeah.
Are you sharing your?
If you want to sing it live, I mean, just quickly sing it. For MP3.
Don't you need accompaniment?
No,
1 second.
sing the Kulgeet. Bye.
ठीक है. I think let's improvise and let her sing, and we will join in if we can.
डालती हूँ.
You, Sanjeev, let's go.
Yeah, sure.
Live.
Go ahead.
Let's go live. Yeah. Okay, over to you.
One second. Let me open the lyrics.
Lyrics. I hope you don't mind if some of us join in.
Yes.
I wish I could
Joining
have
joining would not work on Zoom.
1982 iCard. It has the
Okay, let's
lyrics.
start.
Oh, wow.
Actually, if you are all going to join, then scale A is better.
I think it would be a good idea to let the song run and we can join as a chorus.
The song is not running. Otherwise.
Okay, let's start.
Yeah, please do.
Sorry.
1, 2, 3, start.
On my screen it is playing. Shall I play it?
Jayanti, we can't hear you. Jayanti,
Jayanti ma'am, you are there?
you are muted.
Everybody has got.
I think let's play it then if we can play it.
Sorry. Hello. Yeah. Sorry. I was somehow I tried to find a listen. It started
Try to play it, Kannan.
If you have the lyrics, can you?
Anil Tiwari दिखाई पड़ रहा होता था.
You know what is playing? One second.
Yes, you're right.
I think some more people should join the full beat.
Yes. Rajdhani. सर्वविद्यानि राजधानी सुंदरी सर्वविद्या राजधानी राजधानी
आप हमारे दिन की किसकी क्लास में आता सकते हैं क्या?
राजधानी राजधानी
आप यूट्यूब से वॉच भी कर सकते हैं।
सुंदर विद्या की राजधानी राजधानी राजधानी
शास्त्र गायन गणित खनिज शरीर सायन सुंदर
राजधानी मनोहर अतीव सुंदर ये सर्व
सर्व विद्या की रानी जुहानी.
This is fun. Yeah, I never tried this before, but yeah, probably a memory to remember in future. So thank you so much, Jayanti ma'am. We'll move on. So we'll move on to Future Fund Day event. It's a privilege for me to invite Professor Siddharth Shekhar Singh, 1994 batch alumni. Currently, he is Associate Dean at Indian School of Business. He specializes in new ventures, new product development, marketing, model development, and data analysis. He is co-author of multiple books on marketing, managing marketing and applied approach, the marketing toolkit, managing marketing, concise approach, and essentials of managing marketing. So I request Professor Siddharth to introduce Future Funded thought leaders. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Kirti. Hello, everyone. This is Siddharth here. It's a pleasure and privilege to introduce Professor Paddy Padmanabhan. He's from 1985 batch, mechanical. Paddy is the Unilever Chair Professor of Marketing and the Academic Director of the Emerging Markets Institute at INSEAD. Prior to INSEAD, he was on the Business School faculty at Stanford University. He was also a visiting professor at the Wharton School of Business and Kellogg Graduate School of Management. His research has received numerous awards, including recognition as one of the 10 most influential papers in management sciences first 50 years of publication. He has consulted several and served as expert witness and created executive education courses for many companies ranging from multinationals such as Hewlett-Packard, Nokia, Anheuser-Busch, Lufthansa, Target, Johnson & Johnson, to startups like Engage, Typhoon, Euryditus, Mindseed, etc. across North America, Europe, Asia, and Oceania. Paddy will be talking to us about his recent book released on October 27th, titled The Phoenix Encounter Method, Lead Like Your Business is on Fire. The session will be moderated by Vish Iyer, also an alumnus from the batch of 1992 Electronics and currently Vice President at Cisco in Singapore. By the way, Vish is also Paddy's younger brother. Welcome, Paddy. Podium is yours.
Hey, Paddy, you want to unmute yourself? Hey, good evening, everyone. I think it's indeed an honor and pleasure to see so many of the alumni, and I completely agree with you. Out of the 100-odd people in this call, I am so pleased to see close to 25 of them from the 1982 batch, and I'm pretty intrigued by the fact that we have a number of folks from the 1992 batch as well. So it's very fascinating to see that every 10 years we have a very enthusiastic alumni group. So with that, without further ado, I think it's indeed a great honor and pleasure that two members of our family studied in VHU, and just like many of you listening to the Kulgeet was such a wonderful moment. So look, I think I've got the single honor and the double pleasure to interview my own brother to talk about his book, The Phoenix Encounters. So look, he was kind enough to give me a copy. I know it's available on Amazon Kindle. It's orderable on hard copy, and it's a beautiful book. So maybe I'll start off with the first question on what was the inspiration of this book, and it's probably very timely, given that when you had thought of this book, we were all thinking of potential encounters, but I think probably COVID made all of that a brutal reality in the last couple of months. So maybe over to you, Paddy, to talk to us about the inspiration and the fact how you worked with the various other co-authors in this book.
So first of all, it's actually not just a pleasure, but it's a privilege to be part of this conversation. The 5 years in Banaras is probably the best formative experiences of my life. It taught me so many things. It gave me the confidence to say, look, you can pick up anything and everything you want. And it was the environment in the university that actually helped me get there. So I'm always thankful for that. I remember the first couple of weeks in Banaras, I was pulling my head saying, where have I landed up? And the last few weeks in Banaras, I was like, can I leave this place? I suspect all of us have gone through that emotion. Okay. So that's something I'm so thankful about. With regards to the book, I'll be very, very brief because what I would rather do is make it interactive. The book actually came out of one of the most sort of senior most executive programs that we run at NCAD. It's called the Advanced Management Program. It's a 4-week-long, fully residential program. And the participants typically are CEOs, board members, or CEOs -1. And we do this 3 times a year, twice in Fontainebleau, once in Singapore. And Ian, who's the co-author on the book, basically came up to us and said, look, I have all these guys in there. They're all CEOs of the companies. They're all reading about digital, social, platform, AI, IoT, machine learning. And they're asking, how do I make sense of this? And one of the guys was it was wonderful. He said, look, Paddy, I've set up a company. I was a PhD in chemical engineering. I created IP. This company is based on my IP. I know what I do, but I also know what I don't know, which is what do these things mean for my business and what do these things mean for me as a leader? Am I going to be toast? Do I need to worry about it? Or do I need to sort of figure out what I need to do? So the whole thing with this book actually came out of a module that we created with these participants over the course of a program that would run over literally 4 days, where we take them. Somebody needs to mute themselves.
Can you mute Mr. Ved Chandan, please? Moderator, can you please mute Ved Chandan ji?
But I am online. Video block किया हुआ. Audio video
block. So what we do is we take them through this, where the first couple of days with the senior leaders, we basically just literally throw anything and everything that's new. And then what we do is tell them, look, what you have to realize is any and all of these things could actually come and kill your business. And so the whole idea in the book and in the module is to say, look, and you've heard this, it is for most of us, the problem we have is not in finding the right answer. The problem that most of us have is in framing the right questions. And what we do in the book is to say, look, the problem that most CEOs have is the question they ask themselves is wrong. Because the question they ask is, here's where I am, what do I need to do differently going forward? And that actually narrows down their perspective in terms of what they think about. Whereas if we now take them and their senior leadership team and ask them a different question, which is to say, look, do you realize if I take you out of your company and I give you immense resources, whether it be money, whether it be technology, whether it be talent, what could you imagine that you could do that could kill yourself and your business? It turns out their mindsets change. And the answers that come out of that conversation is very, very different. And so the whole idea there was to say, look, in terms of your ability to deal with disruption, it starts with taking the leaders and saying, can we change your mindset? And let me give you two examples. The first going back to 1960. This is from the founder of INSEAD, who said, for the first incoming MBA class, he said, realize somebody somewhere in the world is working on a product that's going to make your product obsolete. What are you going to do about it? And let me take you to 2000, where Jeff Bezos actually charged Steve Kissel, who at that time was the head of their physical media business, which was books, DVDs, CDs, etc. He says, Steve, your job now is different. I'm firing you from your current job. Your job tomorrow is, what are you going to do to pull my Amazon physical media business out of, just trash it. That's what led to Kindle and a whole bunch of other things. So the whole book is about saying, can you change your mindsets? And it's about saying, the best way to get this going is to ask very different questions than the questions you asked before, because those different questions create very different options for leaders and the executive team and their board versus what they would think of before. Vish, back to you.
Hey, thanks, Paddy. Look, I think I wanted to leave you with one more question, which is a very key theme in your book, which is about at an individual level. How do you rethink your life? You talk about dreamers and doers, and how both the interplay of both is very critical at an individual level, at a business level. So, can you share at a personal level what people need to do to become more relevant in this COVID world, where everyone is feeling a little challenged in different kind of ways?
Look, and there's a point I want to make, and I know we are running short of time, which is legacy organizations need two types of talent. One talent is the people who can make sure the cash register keeps running. They also need another type of talent which tells them what are the questions that we need to be asking which we are not asking now. What are those questions that will make us think about what is it that we need to do different tomorrow? And the problem that I see with most legacy companies is their incentive systems, their KPIs, their HR, and everything that they do is set for the doers. It's not set for the dreamers. And they make it much harder for the dreamers to actually sort of surface and say, here are things that could be done differently. So to me, when I look at organizations, the good news is in today's world, there are legacy organizations that have figured out how to make this work. But to make this work, what it needs is the whole organization from the top all the way down to realize we need to acknowledge we need a diversity of talent. We need the guys who can make the engine run. They're important. But we also need to celebrate the people who can ask us questions that are different from what we normally used to. And many of the ideas for renewal and transformation are probably going to come from those questions.
I think the next question that I have is, we see this new age companies and we see legacy businesses. Can you give a couple of examples? I know you cover a number of them in the book, of companies who have actually transformed and made that cut to transform their legacy business into a new age business, and have done it really well.
No, look, I think I'm a cricket fanatic. If you think about disruption, however controversial it may be, IPL is as big a disruption as it comes. They took a business that was going down the tube and they said, look, if we go down this way, cricket is going to be done. So whether it's IPL or for many of us in India, we probably have heard of this company. It's a Singapore-based company. It's called DBS. Legacy bank as it comes, led by a CEO who's one of our alums. And what I love about Piyush is in 2013, there was nobody in his peer group as CEOs of the top banks. Think about it, Citi, JP Morgan, you name it, Bank of America, nobody. Not one of them spent a minute worrying about Alibaba. Piyush in 2013 was telling me, look, I'm not worried about Jamie. I'm not worried about Citi. What I'm worried about is Alibaba. So what you have is an example of mindsets. And that's what we talk about in the book, which is if you want to be a successful leader, stop thinking inside out. Your industry landscape in today's world doesn't matter. Your competitors today are probably important, but not overpowering. In today's world, you have no clue who can come in from anywhere at any time to think of a new way of going after your business. And that's what Piyush did. The end result, Piyush has created a much more formidable digital bank, which today is actually stopping Alibaba and Tencent from their ability to not just get licenses, but even if they get licenses, to be able to get that business model moving forward. Okay, and it's not just Piyush. Think about Adobe, or think about Microsoft. Think about Disney. Okay, these are all examples of legacy companies. So my point is, everybody thinks digital means legacy companies are dead. That's not true. Legacy companies have lots of assets that they can leverage. But if they have to figure out how to renew and transform, it's about also thinking about what do they need to do to take those assets, at the same time figure out what do they need to do to change.
Hey, thank you, Paddy. I know we are coming to the top of our hour and we have the next guest session. So thank you for sharing your pearls of wisdom. And for everyone, I think the book is out. Welcome to pick it up from Amazon or any of the bookstores available in India or anywhere else. With that, thank you so much, Paddy, for your sharing. I'll love to pass the ball on to the next leg of this event. Back to you, Siddharth.
Thank you, Vish. It's again a privilege and an honor. In the interest of time, I'll quickly come to introduce Professor Pankaj Chandra. Many of you might know him already. He has been in, he's from the batch of 1983 mining. Professor Pankaj Chandra is the Vice Chancellor, currently Vice Chancellor of Ahmedabad University. He was the Director of Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore from 2007 to 13, and Professor of Operations and Technology Management at IIM Ahmedabad and IIM Bangalore. He holds a BTech from BHU and a PhD from the Wharton School, University of Pennsylvania. He has been a full-time faculty at McGill University and IIM Ahmedabad, and a visiting professor at the University of Geneva, the Wharton School, International University of Japan, Cornell University, and Renmin University, Beijing. He was also the first Associate Dean Academic at ISB, where I'm working currently. So it's nice to get in touch with Dr. Chandra. Professor Chandra was a member of the Government of India Committee on Rejuvenation of Higher Education, commonly known as Yashpal Committee, that relooked at the Indian higher education system, as well as the Committee on the Autonomy of Central Institutions. He has been a member of the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, TRAI, Professor Chandra's research and teaching interests include manufacturing management, supply chain coordination, building technological capabilities, higher education policy, and high-tech entrepreneurship. His recent book titled Building Universities That Matter studies issues of governance, change, and institution building in Indian universities. He serves on boards of several firms and institutions. This evening, Professor Pankaj Chandra will be talking about his recent book and related experiences. The session will be moderated by Dr. Pramod Joshi, batch of 1979 electronics, and currently chair, alumni batch and branch council, AIBA. Dr. Joshi.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Siddharth. And it's an honor to moderate this short session. I know both topics are excellent and need at least 2 hours to go into the depth of, the kind of thoughts that these authors have presented. But let's try to make the best of the time we have. It was a pleasure listening to Paddy. And now coming to Professor Pankaj Chandra, I have a special relationship with him. He is 4 years my junior from the institution, but he was the director of IIM Bangalore, an institution where I went later before he came as director, but after passing out from ITBHU. Also, he happened to be my co-guide for the PhD that I did recently. So Pankaj, welcome to this forum. And it's really great to have you here on the day after Diwali. And I request all members here to mute themselves unless, you have something to say at the end. And you can ask your questions on the chat. That would be preferable. Otherwise, there's a lot of disturbance. So Pankaj, I have this book here right now with me. I have been going through it. It's really very well written. It excites a lot of thought. So my first question to you would be, maybe you can first tell us about 5 minutes what this whole book is about, and then answer my first question, which is what prompted the book?
Oh, thank you very much, Pramodji. Thanks, Siddharth, for your very kind introduction. And it was wonderful to hear Paddy. Always, he's such a articulate, erudite person. So thanks, Paddy, I really look forward to reading the book of yours. Unlike Paddy's very hopeful book, mine is a very dark book. And like all of us academics, we tend to critique a little more. But this book is about the decay of higher education in India, and it's about governance. I got started on it almost more than a decade ago, and even earlier than that. This book has been fermenting in my mind for quite some time. So I actually completed the book for many others who have been wanting to say things in this particular area. I got an opportunity to become part of this absolutely amazing committee called Yashpal Committee, which was chaired by Professor Yashpal, the doyen of the Indian space learning part, and the popular physicist as he was. And I got an opportunity to visit more than 20 plus universities across the country, largely public institutions. And this was an eye-opener, very honestly, for me. One was somewhere I found that admissions processes were being controlled and violated. Somewhere, whatever was being taught was being controlled. Somewhere the faculty was being controlled. Somewhere the VC was being locked up by students, or the students getting beaten up by VC and his goons. Somewhere the faculty were not even paid salaries. Somewhere students would not attend classes. Somewhere there was not a single book in the library. Somewhere the library was very well stocked, but not a single student. And somewhere there was no investment in research. And these were very uninspiring kind of visits for us. By the way, in all of them, you always found islands of excellence. You found individuals in these places who were so inspiring, doing great work. You found institutions, but not as many of them. And at most places, you found that students complained against faculty, faculty against VC, and the VC against both faculty and the students. but very few complained about the absence of learning on their campuses. And I would wonder what was going on. And I have been part of now academic administration of about 4 institutions now, and I got to see from within what really was happening, how the structure within Indian institutions were just collapsing because of a lack of autonomy, lack of accountability, or both. And then I also I was encountering as part of this process, the dark world of regulation. It was a dark world driven by politicians and bureaucrats that very strongly believed that academics cannot be trusted with governance of the institution. So they will control, they will define what was actually happening. They select whoever they want as vice chancellors, faculty. And by the way, this has been going on since 1960s, and it continues till date. And it was all of that that got me to militate against this phenomenal control, lack of autonomous mindset that you found in governing of Indian institutions, whether it is the relationship that the universities have with the regulator, or the university leadership has with its own stakeholders like the faculty, the students, the alumni, the city. And this militated with me because I always thought, and I still believe, that universities are self-correcting or self-governing entities. They are really light touch and high tech, and in that sense should not be tampered with. And that really was the rationale in putting this one together. I must also add one other thing. I grew in household of academics. So I've been watching academics since 60s. And I must say that world also was changing very dramatically in front of my eyes. And it became essential for me to put this one together. So that is the long-winded answer to this question of why. Pramodji, are you there?
Pramod, you're on mute. Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah. Sorry. I was so entranced by what you were saying that I forgot that I had muted myself earlier. So you talked about this being a dark book, and where there is darkness, there is light. So do you think there is some hope? And if there is,
of course there is a lot of hope. Absolutely a lot of hope. And the book really builds towards, at the end, towards a newer way of looking at things. And I think there's hope. The hope really comes through 2 or 3 different ways. And you're starting to see perhaps some green shoots of that in the country. I think the new private institutions that are coming up, including my own, are the disruptors that Paddy talked about of the Indian higher education. And they have a very different governance model. They have a very different way of enabling. They have a different way of engaging with the stakeholders for whom we are there in institution, that is the students. The most recent new education policy that has come also has many ideas of that particular kind. Of course, the proof of the pudding is in eating. So we'll have to see how these get implemented. But there is, I think the best thing that has happened in India is for the first time we realized that we are in deep shit. And I think everybody is working towards making sure that our place in the sun really happens in all our lifetimes. And I think it might just happen.
But do you think there are some stakeholders that will make it happen more than others? And if yes, who are those?
More than stakeholders, well, I should say, okay, there are some stakeholders. The stakeholders who can make immense change have to be people who don't want to put their hands in the cookie jar. And they need to be the folks who set policies where they can actually stay away from the institutions. And I think that that's most essential. When a principal secretary of education in any state sends a letter to a vice chancellor and says, show cause why you did not show up or connect with me, then you know that that institution is done. So I think that's the stakeholder that needs to reform itself. But I believe it's the world around that's changing so much. And I think they will have to change. My worry is not so much about private institutions. My worry is very much about the neglect of public institutions. India cannot reach its destiny unless its public institutions are absolutely top class. So the society at large, which has also forsaken its role in terms of the development of academic institutions, because their future sits in academic institutions. Academic institutions prepare people today for tomorrow. And I think if the society at large does not wonder about what's happening today, I think we will have trouble. But I think the stakeholders have to be people who make policy to back away.
Also, good. I really like the fact that there is hope and that there are people who are going to address it. Now, this is an alumni function in a way. What do you think the role an alumni body can play in the development or rectification of an institution if it is going awry? I know this might be a little tricky question, but just wanted to hear your thoughts on it.
No, I think it's the alumni are the only one who have the institution on their DNA. The faculty don't have it. The government doesn't have it. Nobody has it but the alumni. So an alumni's stakes are much, I think the highest in this. The skin in the game has to be there. Now, there's several things that alumni can do. Rather than being very generic, let's talk about our own institution, for a second. One of the things that excited Paddy when he said what he talked about BHU, and which excites all of us, was the fact that it was a university, that it was not a stand-alone engineering institution sitting somewhere in the boondocks, where the culture was very, very defined by engineering principles. I think we grew up because of Ramakrishnan on one side and passing through Birla Brocha on the other side and engaging with the music school and many others. And I think it is that world which needs to be integrated very strongly into any undergrad, especially undergrad learning process. And I believe alumni can play that role. Of course, alumni give resources, and I'm starting to see many great institutions, many great alumni do that for our institution. But I think alumni can actually put pressure on the institution. They can engage. They don't have to, generally alumni in India have been very passive people when the stakes are the highest for them. And they need to actually create an environment of dialogue, conversation, and nudge the institutional leaderships to essentially move in directions that the larger society wants and where disruption can happen. So I think giving resources, going back and teaching, these are all very well known ways in which alumni support. But I think nudging the institution and sometimes nudging it for it to tumble. I'm sorry for being an anarchist here, but nudging it for it to tumble is essential for institutions to change. Because the change is coming. There are 5 very, very significant changes happening around the world. Technology we've seen, climate change, globalization is under enormous stress, urbanization is causing immense challenge, and we are seeing health today. And these 4 or 5 changes are going to change the way teaching and learning will happen. What is going to get taught? Where are the new jobs going to come? Where is new knowledge going to arise? And I think institutions must be nudged, and alumni can play a phenomenal role. And I think we are almost there to engage in that manner.
Great. I'm reminded of, how a parent or an elder brother sometimes makes a kid who is on a bicycle, just nudges them off balance to see how they can come back. So right. in a sense, you are saying that the alumni being vested in the success of the institution will do it positively, whereas external forces that are beyond control may actually destroy the institution if such nudges are not taken in the right spirit. One other question that has, actually there are 4 or 5 questions on the chat, but I'll summarize them. All of them are around implementation. People are saying it's good to have policies, the NEP, etc. But where or how can we implement them in such a way that we are able to bring excellence to Indian higher education? And there is a sub question there, what is the point in bringing excellence to Indian higher education system if all the students go and settle abroad? That's from somebody, Mr. Amitabh Sinha, 1978 batch. So in a way, it's the implementation jigsaw puzzle. Can you throw some light on that?
I think we're putting the cart before the horse here. The fundamental problem doesn't lie there. I think in implementation, if the foreground is correct, then implementation is easy. Why are we talking about implementation is because the philosophical principles have gone wrong. And I'll mention 3 things here. 1960s onward, Indian higher education grew very dramatically to meet the needs of the larger society. And that is what led to enormous amount of destruction that we're seeing today, and anguish that almost everybody has of education. As the number of institutions grew, by the way, we have the largest network of colleges and universities around the world, even higher than China in numbers. But the enrollment per institution is one of the lowest in the world. Average enrollment per institution is about 600. Okay. Now, what it did was, when the numbers are very large, the bureaucrats of that time found only one way of managing and doing the sarkarikaran of higher education. And that was through control. You control and standardize everything. You standardize examination. JEE is a classic example of that. That you standardize everything. Standardized examination, standardized tests, standardized curriculum, standardized books, standardize how a faculty is hired. And you think you will get everything else. This is just antithetical to what academic institutions or universities are about. Academic institutions about diversity, about diversification. To be so different from each other, to be doing so many different experiments that all gain out of that process. And it's this standardization which has caused problems. So that's number 1. Second, this sarkarikaran or standardization also led to low autonomy. Low autonomy means low accountability. If I am going to be, are you not giving me any autonomy to do anything, then don't expect anything from me. That's a standard mindset of an academic. The third thing is, these institutions also are left with low trust and low cooperation amongst stakeholders. And when uncertainty is very high for everybody, this bounce, and Indian higher education system is full of these characteristics. Now, unless these fundamental issues get addressed through policy, whatever we implement is going to be very subpar. And I'll give you an example. I've been part of conversations that some of the states are doing. They're all setting up policy committees to do implementation of this new education policy. And all of them are again talking standardization. Okay, let's create a curriculum which has 30% classes that have to be taken in humanities, social sciences, multidisciplinarity done, tick mark, okay. Does it lead to better training? Does it lead for students to do thinking? Patty talked, I really liked it. What he talked about is learning to ask the right questions. Are we teaching that to our students? And I think it's, unless those fundamental issues get addressed very dramatically, we will not be able to implement. And by the way, they will not be able to do it through a policy mandate, but it will have to be done one institution at a time. And that's really where the alumni can play a phenomenal role for their institution. You engage very deeply and you make that change to happen. Now, about what's the big deal of all of this for if people go out and settle abroad, we have to ask this question. Many go abroad because we don't provide them with opportunities in this country. We don't provide that kind of ground level academic environment or work environment or other opportunities. And as that world changes, I think many more people would stay here. And even if they go away, I think they're contributing to the world of knowledge globally. That part doesn't bother me very much. Of course, what bothers me is that we all get educated at the cost of the taxpayers. And that's where I think that bit can be addressed very differently. But it's essential that we address the fundamentals first and not worry about implementation.
Excuse me, can I ask one question?
Yeah, can you make it quick, please? We have just 5 minutes left.
Can
sir.
I ask one question, please?
Yes, Agarwal ji, पूछिए.
N.K. Agarwal is my name. And I want to ask Dr. Chandra that, NEP has specified so many things. And the condition of the institutions are, as what they mentioned, a lot of difficulties and so on and so forth. But unfortunately, the education institutions are also becoming a money-making center. So while enrolling students, they sacrifice the quality of students to be enrolled in order to fill the quota. And the result is that the students who come and join these institutions, at least 50 or 40% of them have no interest in learning. Then the question of training the faculties to follow this implementation or the new provisions of NEP, how the institutions are going to proceed or implement on this, and how the education system is going to improve. That's my question.
Actually, sir, I had asked you a question and Professor Chandra did go into it. Maybe you missed it, but I had taken 3-4 questions and combined it and made it a question of implementation. So I think that was what Professor Chandra was answering.
If it's okay with you, let me say one thing. The game cannot be won without top-end faculty and autonomy to faculty to be able to do experiment and do newer kind of things. That part is completely absent. I think most of our academic institutions have very uninspiring, mediocre faculty. And if that's the case, we will not be able to inspire students in any institutions. And then we'll continue to blame the student, but actually the problem lies somewhere else. So the student is uninspired because my faculty is not inspiring. I'm not able to get better faculty because I have created structures of low accountability, low autonomy, and full control at the policy level. And so the best and bright actually don't find it useful to come to academia. So we have to change something there to be able to change the classroom.
And who's going to change that?
I think things will change. The environment will force them, the market environment, everybody will change. You're already seeing a flight of large number of young kids going abroad. Whoever has money sends their kids abroad to do undergraduate education. I'm hoping that institutions like mine and many others which are coming up will be the newer models that can show the way a little bit as we go along. But I'm worried more about the public institutions, which is really where large majority go today.
Okay, I think we are running short of time. I'll ask you one last question, Professor Chandra, which is a little personal. What kind of impact did BHU have on your career and in this book? I think you mentioned about BHU. You also, in the early part of this conversation, talked about BHU being very different. So can you tell us any personal instances or turning points that caused you to move into academia?
No, there are many. You know, BHU, I think I am what I am because of BHU. To a very, I mean, there are many institutions and many individuals that have changed. But let me do one thing. If you permit me, I want to read a paragraph from this book. And maybe it'll answer a little bit of question as well as my anguish about BHU. So it's both my affection and my anguish both there. And so here's what I want to read to you. And I read with quotes. When I entered Banaras Hindu University as an engineering student more than 40 years ago, little did I know that the immaculately planned campus would change my world of learning, create a deep sense of anguish about undergraduate education in India, and provide an appreciation of and a longing for a broad education. We saw broad education almost there in its beauty and still could not partake of it. Such were the rigid boundaries of disciplines at the university. Everything was there at BHU, as the university is popularly referred to. The legacy and history around which ballads were written, the unique culture and traditions that bound many together, the breadth of disciplines and the depth of their efforts that would make it one of the most comprehensive university campuses in the country, the perfect campus and its amazing facilities that only the most endowed institution could have, a diverse student body, and its very high-placed alumni that many would envy, and a hunger amongst its student body that few in the world could match. It was only several decades later, and after seeing how institutions around the world were enabled, that one realized what was really absent. The ability to bring all of it together to get more from the sum of the parts. And my book is about bringing a university together. It's about its governance. So that's my BHU for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Chandra. It is really a very mesmerizing book, and I'm sure more people will pick it up. Please give a round of applause to Professor Chandra and wish him all the best. He is currently Vice Chancellor of Ahmedabad University, which I think is an experiment in progress, and I'm sure he will take it to great heights. With that, I hand it back to Professor Siddharth Shekhar Singh, who had given me the chance to moderate this session. Thank you, Professor Chandra. Thanks a lot.
Most welcome. Thank you very much for giving me this chance.
I would request Kirti to please take this forward.
Yeah, Professor Siddharth. No worries, it's okay. Thanose both are really great, amazing